Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book Return to Mars by Ben Bova. This is the sequel to his novel Mars, which is from his Grand Tour universe, and this is an interesting universe of reading because he doesn't write the trilogies in order. He doesn't write all the books in order. He kind of pops around. And so you kind of have to read based off what planet you're reading and what characters and storyline. It's a little confusing. But suffice that to say, I read Mars last year. It was the first Ben Bova book I picked up, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was my absolute favorite read of the year, bar none. Loved the book. One of my favorite science fiction novels of all time. And I was super excited to continue on with more Ben Bova novels. So I've bought a bunch of others. I bought his book Jupiter, his book Saturn, his book Venus, and his book Return to Mars. And since Return to Mars featured the same main character as the first book, I figured I would continue on with that first. So I picked up Return to Mars, and it's by a different publisher. This publisher is EOS Science Fiction. I've never read any books from EOS before. Let me see who they're an imprint of. They're an imprint of HarperCollins, so it's a HarperCollins book, but I'm not familiar with EOS. I don't even know if they still publish novels. Let me know in the comments section. Do you read novels, or have you read novels by EOS? And if so, which ones? But I picked up this book, and I was really excited for it. It's about the same length. It's actually a little bit longer than the first book. The book is, at the same time, really, really entertaining, and I had a blast reading it. And also, at the same time, I was kind of offended as a fan of things that he does in the book, which is just, I think, really an interesting dynamic. A book that I cannot stand the decision making that the author made, and yet I was glued to the book because I thought it was so interesting. And so I'll get into a little bit of my reasoning behind all of this as I go along. So let me start out with the basic premise of this universe. This is a hard science fiction universe generally. It is about exploring, space. And in the first book is it's supposed to be the first ever human expedition to Mars. And you see the political process of how they got the funding, how they got the support, how they got the scientists and everyone on board, and how they went to space. And then it's about how they got to to Mars. It's about how they explored Mars over the course of like 46 days, and then they find molecules of little creatures that would prove that there was life on Mars. And then the main character believes that there used to be sentient life on Mars. And so the second book, the only character from the first book to return is the main character of Jamie Waterman. And he is a half Anglo, half Native American guy who is running the expedition this time. In the first book, he's just a general scientist. In this book, he is the leader of the expedition. And he has the goal of finding whether or not there is or was sentient life on Mars. And so they go back and they rehash a lot of the similar ideas. You see them set foot on Mars for the first time again. You see them setting up a base. You see them having to build their resources together, plant their food. You see the characters have to go exploring like they did before. So you see a lot of the same types of storytelling elements that were in the first book, and it's that those storytelling elements are really interesting to someone like me who really loves space exploration. So I enjoyed it. However, I need to get into several of the elements of the book that I did not like. And the first thing, and the thing that just absolutely rubbed me the wrong way, was the way that the romance is handled in this book. I am one of those people that I really like sappy romances. I do not particularly want to read explicit stuff on screen, but I still enjoy romances. But in the first book, there is a kind of a romance that buds near the end that I really enjoyed between the main character and Joanna Brumado. And I'm about to give a slight spoiler in this review, but it's revealed at the beginning, towards early on in the book, so it's not a big spoiler. But at the end of this book, they end up together, and it's implied they're going to get married and all that stuff. And the first opportunity the author gets, he reveals that Jamie and Joanna have gotten a divorce, and that it was a no-fault divorce. No one did anything wrong. They just felt that she didn't actually truly love him. It was just a sense of, oh, well, she had just married him to get back at her father and to impress her father. So really, she didn't love him, and so she just leaves him. And he's kind of okay with it. And so at the beginning of this book, he's not attached to her. They're divorced. And all of a sudden, he's now available for a potential romance with one of the other characters on the expedition. And this bothered me because this was entirely the author writing a whole character story off page that we never really saw, and he builds up this investment in the first book, this investment into their relationship and dynamic. And then he says, you know what, I'm throwing that off. We need to have a romance in this book. So I'm going to throw that all out so that we can have the romance here with him and someone else on the ship, because it didn't make sense for Joanna Brumado to go back on the ship again. And so why do you feel the need to make the main character the one that has to have that romance? There were, 8 people on the expedition. You could make one of the other characters have a romance with another character. In fact, that does happen. There's another couple, a guy and a girl, that end up getting a romance develop. You could have focused on that romance and maybe given them some point of view chapters, and instead, this could have, the main character, Jamie Waterman, could have focused entirely on his point about finding the life on Mars. But so the romance, it just, I don't like when divorce is written in books, because I think it's morally wrong. But at the same time, I really don't like it when it's done for this reason, that it's obvious that the author just wanted the main character to be able to have a romance in this one, and he couldn't keep the wife from the previous book, so he divorced her so that he'd be available. It bothers me. And then one of the other things that bothered me about this book was the themes about the book are that humans have a tendency to run roughshod over others. And the main character, he's part Indian, so part of his heritage is that when America had begun expanding, they had taken over the Native American lands and forced them out and made them lose their land and stuff, and sometimes their lives. And that is an interesting part of his backstory. But he tries to apply that to Mars. He tries to say, hey, if we build development, if we build settlements, if we build colonies, if we start putting business on Mars, if we start exploring and doing all this stuff, then we will be, Mars is like the Native Americans. The problem is that what they did to the Native Americans, those are human beings. Those are people that they hurt. This is just a planet with resources. And so it felt like a false equivalency to me in the argument. And so I did not agree with the main themes of the book, because I felt that the main character had that false equivalency, and that if anything, I would fit into the camp of, why wouldn't we use these resources? Most of our population's on Earth. If we can use resources from another planet, we absolutely should. So anyway, I did not like the themes there. However, this book does have, especially in the last 150 pages, there is kind of a whodunit element to the book, where one of the characters goes crazy, but you don't know who it is. You get these little data entries that reveal this character going crazy, but you don't know who is that character that's going crazy. You know it's one of the 8 people on the expedition, but you don't know who. And at the beginning of the book, I thought it has to be this character. And I was like, sure. And then as the book went along, I was like, oh, no, it's this character. And then I get towards the end, and I'm like, I was wrong, it's this other character. So I had like 3 different characters in mind of who I thought the person that went crazy was. And the person who goes crazy is hiding it from the rest of the crew. And then it's revealed at the end who it was, and I was totally wrong. It wasn't any of the three that I thought it was one of the other characters. So I thought that the whodunit elements of the book were brilliant, and I thought that it was action-packed and exciting, and I think that the book is very propulsive, and there's a lot of excitement behind it. The middle of the book drags a little bit, but it's still really entertaining. I felt that, Mars, the first book, didn't drag anywhere because even in the middle, you are having all these flashbacks to the past where you're seeing them work on the preparation for the Mars mission. You're seeing the politics behind it. There's a little bit of politics in this book, but it's mostly in the present. You don't get any of that past politics here. And so because of that, it doesn't have the propulsiveness. It does not have the really intrigue, the level of intrigue that the other book does. And so as I said, this book is entirely entertaining. I had fun reading the whole book. But in almost every single way, I thought that it did things that the first book did badly. I thought that everything the first book did right, the second book just couldn't do properly. It slightly failed at it, even though I think the book's entertaining. So I'm going to give the book a 7 out of 10. It's entertaining. I had fun with it, and I'm excited to continue on with Ben Bova's universe. I think that the way he writes science fiction, specifically about space exploration and exploring new worlds, I think that is great, and I'm really interested in it. However, I just think that he did not handle the character journeys or the romance or the themes of the book particularly well. But I still had a blast. So that's my review of Return to Mars, the second book in the Mars series from the Grand Tour universe. So if you've read Return to Mars, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.